were thinking about it just before. It's recording now. Jeff, do you know how to download it afterwards, or have you not done that from Google?
I've never done it in Google, but I'm sure there's a way.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
All right, well, thank you everyone that did make it today. I appreciate everyone taking some time. I know this is probably one of our last sunny days. I think rain is coming this weekend, and our April sunshine that we've been spoiled with, maybe going away for a little bit. And I did schedule the meeting for 2 hours, but unless we get on some really long sideways conversations, I don't think we'll have the whole 2 hours that we need either. So you guys might get some time back for your afternoon. So I want to do some quick introductions because I know not everybody here knows everyone. My name is Ria Flizikowski. I'm a transportation engineer at DKS Associates, and we are the consultant that was graciously hired by ODOT, who is paying for the Sandy Transportation System Plan update, and we'll be working with the city and ODOT closely the next year on this project. And then we also have some other people from our project management team. We have Kelly O'Neill from the city. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to say any introductory words.
No, I'm just happy that we're continuing the process. That's all I'll say.
Okay. And Seth Brumley from ODOT. He's the ODOT project manager. Seth's here too. I don't know if you would like to say any wise words, Seth.
Yeah, I just like to say I'm an ODOT planner, and as you said, the grant manager for this project. I've worked with many of you, and I look forward to working with those of you I haven't yet. Thanks.
And then and Mike's here too. Mike Walker from the city. I don't want to leave Mike out. He's the engineer from the city. Mike, do you want any other words to add?
No, I'm just glad we're doing this too. And we're implementing a project right now that was in the current TSP from 2011.
Okay, go. So that's it for agencies. And then I also have someone else from our consultant team today. Darcy, do you want to introduce yourself? If it'll let you unmute.
There we go. I'm flabbergasted that this is a platform I haven't used yet this past year. So everything's just a little different. My little boxes are different. Hi, everyone. Darcy Rudzinski, Angelo Planning Group. Happy to be part of the DKS team. I actually worked on the 2011 plan, but I have to say I'm learning a lot, seeing all the things that have been going on in the intervening years. So happy to be part of the team. Sad that my colleague Emma Porcolo could not be here today because she is a fountain of information, but she had other things she had to do. So I'm going to do the best I can and impart what we know.
And Emma used to work for the city, right, Darcy? Didn't she used to work for City Sandy?
Yes.
Yeah. So good tie. So
yeah.
I'm sure you'll do great, Darcy. Okay, now I was going to go around and ask all the advisory committee members if they would introduce themselves, but I also want to ask you if you can let us know what you're interested in the project, or maybe what you think the one thing that you would like to get out of the TSP update. I think a little personal insight would be great. Oh, and I missed Andy. Andy, sorry. You work. Go ahead. Sorry. Everyone's blurry, I must admit.
Totally fine. Hi, I'm Andy. I am the transit director here at the City of Sandy. Happy to be a part of this project. Obviously, I will be most interested in looking at the multimodal aspects of the TSP and how transit will be impacted by some of the decisions and policies as we move forward. And hi, Seth, good to see you again. It's been a little while. We just finished our transit master plan, and Seth worked with us on that we wrapped that up in April of 2020. So it's been a little bit since I've seen you. Good to see you again.
All right, I'm just going to call on people. Carl?
Yeah, I'm Carl. I just came in off of Burnside Bridge and got from underneath there and thought I'd join it somehow. And when I'm not playing under Burnside, I'm also one of the city councilors here in Sandy. One of the things I guess I'm interested in seeing is that the transportation plan really needs to be updated. So there's a lot of things that are needing some improvement. We need to do a little bit of taking look at some of the way our transportation plan fits through the entire city as we grow so fast. We are one of the fastest growing cities in the state. So we'll make sure we have good, clean transportation lines from one side to the other.
All right, great. Thanks, Carl. Let's see. Linda, you want to go?
I'm Linda Robertson, also known as Don Robertson. I'm using her computer today.
I was going to say you do not look like a Linda, but I'm just reading to be
Not a problem.
official.
Not a problem. If I knew how to change my my little moniker there, I would do that, but I haven't figured that out yet. So we will deal with it as it is. You can call me Linda, call me Don, call me whatever you want to. I'm the current chair of the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. So I guess my interest is how the soon to be adopted or soon to be completed Parks and Trails master plan can kind of fold in together to work kind of hand in glove with the transportation plan as far as connections for trails and street crossings and different things along that line. On a more personal or selfish basis, I live over near Bornstead Park. We are surrounded by development. I have houses, 30 some odd houses to my west and I don't know, dozen or so directly behind me, all in various stages of completion. And they all seem to funnel through our street. So I'm kind of curious to see how what the future lies for Highway 211 and all the streets that connect to that, ranging from Arletha up to, all the way up to Highway 26. So that's kind of what my selfish interest is, along with the Trails Master Plan stuff. Thank you.
Yep, it's not selfish. You live there, so it's an important. Let's see, Gary.
Hi, I'm Gary Boyles, Fire Marshal with the Sandy Fire District, and happy to be part of the advisory committee. And my interest really is just to, as much as I can, educate and preserve whatever we decide for transportation, just to make sure our apparatus can maintain access through streets as they're developed.
Sorry, it's muted. Happy to have you, Gary.
Thank
and Jeff, I think you're last.
Okay, I'm Jeff Aprati. I'm the assistant to the city manager. So I don't really have a specific interest. I think I'm just here sort of representing the city manager's office and kind of taking a high level view of everything and kind of reporting back to Jordan, letting him know how it's going, and just excited to be a part of this process. And I'm sure we're going to come out with a great plan.
Great. So I think that's everyone. And I'll speak up if maybe you're on the phone and I don't see you. No? Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. That's really helpful to get to know everyone and know what everyone's objectives are. So let's jump right in. Kelly, do you want me to show my screen?
Yeah, that'd be the easiest. It's down in the lower right-hand corner. It says present now.
Oh,
yeah.
Again, you're right. It's a platform I don't use all the time, but
yeah, it's not. It has to be labeled something different, right? Yeah, present now is the thing you want to click.
Think I'm going.
Yeah, if you click entire computer, then you can flip through things a lot easier.
Oh, I just picked window bit. So can everybody see the agenda?
Yep.
Okay. Sadly, I can't see your faces anymore. I'm just talking to myself, but guess that's okay. So here's the agenda we've already gone through. Introduction. So I wanted to jump in a little bit into the project introduction, and this was in part of your packet as well. But since some of you are new to the TSP update, I wanted to give a little bit of a highlight just so you know a little bit of context where we are and where we're going and why we're doing this. So the city does have a transportation system plan. It was adopted in 2011. And now that it's about 10 years old, and someone had mentioned Sandy's growing really fast and a lot of things have changed. It's really a great time to do an update. So what we are going to be doing really is updating it, looking at the next 20 years out. So we'll be looking at the year 2040. We will be looking at community input, businesses, visitors, and some stakeholders input to see, really what are the needs and the priorities for the future transportation system for Sandy, and what should we be investing in. So we'll be looking at safety, access. We're always considering economic opportunities for the community as they're related to transportation as well. We're also going to be looking at some, again, they were mentioned today already, some recent plans that the city has worked on. There's the transit master plan from last year, and then the Parks and Trail master plan that's wrapping up right now, and then a couple other local plans. So we'll want to make sure that all of those recommendations and policies get coordinated and included into the updated transportation system plan as needed. Then some special local issues. We will be looking at increased traffic volumes on 26. We'll also be looking at citywide pedestrian and bicycle activity. And we've heard quite a few comments about the need for that. And then just general enhanced connectivity for everyone. As you had mentioned about, new houses going around you and everyone funneling through your neighborhood. So we want to make sure we're addressing that as well, and really helping the city finding any new funding opportunities. Let's see. And then on the bottom of this, we just highlight some opportunities that'll be coming up. We will be having a public tabling event. We are still trying to figure out what that's going to look like with COVID, and if that's something that we could maybe do outside in person, following the current rules. We're going to try to do that. And then also having a community workshop too. So that's something we'd be having later this spring or early summer. And on the top right, you can see we have kind of a high level schedule. And I just wanted to do a really quick walkthrough of what we'll be doing for the TSP.
Before you move on,
oh, sure.
The agenda, things that we're going to be doing. Maybe this is Kelly. I don't know. Maybe it's you, Ria, but where does the bypass plan fit into all this?
That is a great question. I was going to kind of throw it in when I got to the blue piece, but yes, concurrently with the TSP update, we also have a contract to look at the bypass concept, which is in the current TSP, and they're very interrelated. So at times I almost forget that they're two separate projects. But we're taking a fresh look at the bypass as a potential project for the future in Sandy. We're doing special forecasting for it, and we will be doing a benefit cost analysis as a special project. So as we work through the TSP, and then we start to get some findings and recommendations from the bypass project, we will inform this group on that as well, because ultimately whatever happens in the bypass project, it either will or will not be a project that lives and becomes in the updated TSP. Does that make sense? I don't know, any other questions on just the bypass process?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out this Google Meet as well. So.
Yeah, I know, sir. I wanted to see everyone's face. Okay. So I will keep going. I assume everyone can still hear me. So when we start the TSP's process, our first work is really learning and understanding. So we're working through the existing conditions right now and looking at what some future growth trends could be. We are reviewing the city's past values and their transportation goals right now. We're looking at performance measures and some evaluation criteria, and some of that we're going to hit on today. And also looking at state and regional plans, which is all of what we're going to be talking about today. And then once we get through that, we start diving in a little bit more into the analysis and the evaluation, looking at those future 24 conditions, just to see what the future deficiencies are, what type of problems do we need to solve, coming up with various solutions and what those could be for each of the travel modes. And then we will come up with a list of solutions and then going out to the community again for their input. And then once we get to that, we start having some preferred alternatives. We start working on a draft plan. Again, more public review. And then at the end, we start talking to the city council, or it's actually planning commission, then city council, and having some adoption hearings. So that's the really quick schedule that we're going to be going through. So any questions on schedule? Here, I'll bounce back to faces. No? Okay. And then I also did want to let everybody know that, we are always looking for more feedback from the public. So if you know anyone that is interested, please point them to the city's website. They have a special page just for the transportation system plan, and it'll have all this information, like what you're looking at on my screen right now is up there. All of the opportunities for input for the public. Once we know, when and where and how we're going to do that, that'll be advertised there. We'll be putting up documents to share with the public as well. So please, you guys are our best advocates for reaching out to people in the community so we can get some more input. All right. Good so far? Okay. So the next thing on our agenda today is going through technical memo 1, which is, I don't know who did their homework. I'll have everyone, here, I'm going to go back. Anyone going to raise their hand that they read the entire thing cover to cover?
Did you tell them that there was going to be a quiz?
I know, with
Oh.
donuts. I don't know. Someone gets donuts. I don't know who, but. So I know it's a 51-page memo. I know Kelly read it because he had to. I think Seth probably read it. Darcy half wrote it. So I don't know if Mike read it. He's probably nodding his head. No. So if you love policies and code, which Darcy does, you probably read it page to page. Some of us probably rolled our eyes. But I will say, and I am so glad that Angela Planning Group is on our team to help with this type of work because I'm an engineer. It's a very important first step when we start the TSP. As you will see as we go through this memo.
It looks like Seth has his hand raised.
Does he? Oh, he does. Sorry. It's tiny.
Yeah.
Little Seth
Little
hand.
hands.
Gotcha.
I was just gonna. We did skip the bullet for discussing the CAC's roles and expectations.
Oh, thank you. We did, didn't we? Sorry, Seth. Thank you. I was just jumping right in. Yes, sorry. This is our first meeting. So it is important that the CAC knows how they fit in. And honestly, I clipped this language right from our scope because I think it's very poignant and very clear. So I'm just going to read it. So as CAC members, you serve as the voice of the community and an advisor to the project management team, which is the consultant team, the city, and ODOT, to help us carry out the project goals and objectives. So you will work to ensure the evaluation criteria and the performance measures and the preferred programs and solutions are consistent with your community values. The CAC will provide technical and policy guidance and coordinate throughout the project. The CAC will work actively to identify and resolve technical and jurisdictional issues in order to produce a timely and complete updated TSP. So specifically, you are the local voices that are going to keep the project management team in line and the technical folk. So at the end, this is your plan, and the local plan is very representative of what you guys are looking for. So I really feel that's an important role for you because I don't live in Sandy, right? Darcy doesn't live in Sandy. Seth doesn't live in Sandy. We really need that local support to make sure that this is what you guys are going to be needing in your community for the next 20 years. So we will be leaning on you guys a lot for some input. Okay, everyone up for that? Yeah. Okay.
One thing I was going to mention is that one of the benefits of the city's project team right now is that people on the project team all live in, Mike and myself both live in city limits, so we're impacted by the outcomes of the TSP as well. And Andy lives right outside of town, so we're very involved in the outcome essentially.
Yeah, I think we're getting lots of local input on both the CAC and the PMT level. So it's good. All right, thanks, Seth. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I have to go back to where I was. So, the policy framework and code review is a very important step that we do at the beginning because you will see, there are so many planning documents, both state level and local level, that we need to consider and that we need to be consistent with and that guide all of the decisions that we make in the TSP. We can't just do whatever we want, to be blunt. There is so much guidance that we need to follow to make sure that this is an adoptable plan at the end. It's very important. And I will say this is a 50+ page document. So I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. And then maybe I'll just, I actually can't see your guys' faces or if you raise your hand. So just speak out if you have a question. And I'm just going to highlight some of the parts that I think are more interesting and more applicable to the actual Sandy TSP. But I'll just keep going through. And then I think when we get to the code, Darcy's probably really want to pop you in, or if I get any hard questions.
Right. That sounds good. And
Okay.
and Rhea, I might also just kind of frame
Oh,
up this.
Go ahead.
No, well, and I'm so glad you're taking the lead, because it's much easier for me to interject than it is for me to do the spiel. So good. I'm glad. But with this work, as Rhea said, it's the framework for the planning work that we're doing, that the TSP update. But it isn't 100% one way either. It isn't all, oh, this plan tells us we have to have this standard or we have to have this project. This planning process that's going to result in an updated TSP will come out with recommendations, will come out with modifications to standards, or sort of right sizing things for Sandy that may actually require or suggest a change in another plan, whether that be a local plan or even a statewide standard. So I think Rhea mentioned the mobility targets. Yes, there are standards to follow, but there's also a process to modify those, so that jurisdictions that are trying to be consistent with state planning documents have some recourse to right size things to their jurisdiction as well. So it's a bit iterative. The other thing I would mention, because we run into this all the time, is we are trying to take excerpts from adopted documents, and some of those are older, some of them are not complete yet. Sometimes we make a blanket statement that's actually right from the plan, but it's already antiquated. And luckily, Kelly's caught a lot of those things so that it's more correct now than it ever has been, this document. But that doesn't mean that it's 100%. And also just realize or take into account the age of the planning document that's being reviewed. And then to try to make this really lengthy document a little bit more digestible, we have tried to put kind of a relevancy statement, like, why does Sandy care about this? Well, Sandy cares about this because, and then we have just a little excerpt. So when you are looking at this document, or you are reviewing areas that you either have more interest in or more expertise in, and you come to that relevancy statement and there's something that doesn't quite fit, or we've missed something, that's a really nice place to kind of put a point on it. Like, this is something that, the team, the city, the advisory committee shouldn't forget as we go forward and update the plan. So with that, Rhea, I shall turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Darcy. I always appreciate your guidance in this, because I know this is your area of expertise. All right, let's go back. And again, I'm not going to read this whole memo. We'll be here all day. But the first page really is just listing the state documents that we included in this review. And then the second list are the local documents that we included in the review. Hold on, I'm going to hide it. Oh, that's much better. So the only thing there I really wanted to highlight is the policy framework and code review really does come with how are we managing and how are we going to monitor the transportation system. And that's a section that we have at the end of this memo. But to me, that's one of the most important things that comes out of here. Whenever we talk about design or mobility or spacing standards on the highway, that's really important. And that's what's going to be guiding a lot of the things that we're doing. And then again, just making sure as we're developing solutions and strategies, as we get, in the last half of this TSP update and looking at the local needs for Sandy, we will be cross-checking and we'll be going back to make sure that we are compliant and we're coordinating with all these state and local policies. So as Darcy said, I mean, it's kind of a back and forth. It can be iterative. And just making sure that we're either being true to these or we're acknowledging where we're going to change things because that's what's best for Sandy. So the first policy looked at was the state transportation planning rule. So this is very high level guidance, like the highest level you can get for system planning. And it mostly just has policies that we follow through the state. Very high level. I'm not even going to read these, but these are things that we would be considering as we work through some of our solutions. It helps us evaluate alternatives and how we prioritize our projects. And then again,
yeah.
Go ahead, Darcy, and say, please
just
jump in.
chime in too. I mean, one section that's, so the transportation planning rule tells you what you need to have in a local system plan, and also, who you need to coordinate with, sort of like how one develops a local plan or updates a local plan. But it also very specifically gives direction and has requirements for implementing that plan. And so again, that's kind of where APG comes back into the project in full force, and that's helping kind of update local development requirements, ordinances, to make sure that the system you're planning for actually becomes a reality through future development and growth. So there's some very prescriptive areas of the transportation planning rule that we will again try to match up to see how the city's doing on that, and maybe make some recommendations for again better aligning your development requirements with the system that you're planning for.
Thanks. And then we looked at the Oregon Access Management Rule, which is really applicable when we're looking at the state facility, and if there's any access requirements to that. Then there's several design manuals that apply to the highway design manual, it's based on jurisdictions of the highway. And then there's also the new blueprint for urban design, which replaces some of the highway design manual. And then there is also, the traffic manual. So all of these we would be considering as we start looking for any changes or solutions that might apply to US 26 through the city. Then there's also, oh my gosh, there's so many of these. The Oregon Transportation Plan. Darcy, do these ever start to sound the same to you?
I usually lump them when I talk about them, and then basically just say there are a number of documents that govern state facilities. ODOT has a responsibility for planning for the state highway system, and there's a bunch of both kind of regulatory documents, policy documents, modal plans, right? So the bike ped plan is a for specific mode. Right. So the Oregon Highway Plan, has several different policies. One that's interesting and applicable for Sandy is the special transportation area provision, whereby again, So I think actually Sandy, am I wrong about this? Sandy was maybe one of the first jurisdictions with an STA, and again that acknowledgement that the highway is your main street, and through cities, maybe it should look a little different, a little bit more manageable, a little bit more access, maybe more parking, and of course you all are familiar with how that has worked on the couplet. So that's documented here, and also in the local plans, your SDA agreement, intergovernmental agreement with ODOT, and what how that modifies what you would otherwise have to do on a highway. You now have a special plan that is just for that segment, going through town. And so those things modify what kind of is the typical underlying requirements for a highway.
So just a question, how does 211 fit in all this, especially the portion that the city has taken over?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I noted that here. So just last year, the city within the boundaries has taken over 211. I don't know if it changes that much. It was a minor arterial before. And as we would update the functional classification map as part of this TSP update, I anticipate that it'll stay a minor arterial, though it does definitely change the responsibilities for that road and the options. Something we can start thinking about is, do we want 211 to look different? Because now we don't have to ask ODOT. We could follow city standards. I don't know, Mike, if you want to
Yeah,
add
we
anything.
adopted a cross-section for 211 inside the city with the Bornstead Village Plan. And I think that is in the existing TSP.
Yep.
With lane widths, right-of-way width, sidewalks, planter strips, all that. So yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to implement that section now that it's a city street. And I think the other big difference is we're going to be following AASHTO design standards, not the ODOT Highway Design Manual, in the way we, review projects on that facility.
Thanks.
Let me again flip through this. The Oregon Highway Policy also talks about freight routes with US 26s. Let's see what else is applicable. It does define the mobility standards, or how much congestion is acceptable on the highway. It also has some direction about how we define what improvements could be like on the highway. Talking about how you have to preserve the existing system first before you either add capacity or we build new facilities along it. Darcy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, not to put you on the spot, about the bypass policy, but we specifically put this in here because we are looking at the bypass as a special consideration project in addition to doing the TSP. And I know the state has pretty specific criteria under this policy and what you need to consider. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, yeah, I guess the policy is pretty high level as far as what it allows for. I think where we have, done a bit of assessment about the actuality of a physical improvement being built, that really kind of gets into the land use transportation connection and really whether or not a bypass could be sited, contained within the current urban growth boundary versus being sited and going on resource land, so forest or agricultural land. So that gets kind of into a layer a more detailed layer about the ease or difficulty in which one could actually, have a bypass around Sandy. That kind of gets into some, if almost competing interests, if you will, between transportation and land use, and really what's allowed to go on resource land. So.
Okay. I will keep going. There's a little bit of policy just about how ODOT does help with some local street network and funding of some of those things. Also, there's a policy about traffic safety because, of course, we will be looking at citywide cross analysis as part of our work and seeing if there's any solutions or programs that are needed for that. Again, the OHP will be setting the spacing standards and the requirements for the state highway. And please speak up if I'm going too fast, but there's a bunch of other policies about freight movement, alternative passage modes, transportation demand management, which is the practice of applying programs and strategies to reduce the demand on the system. Oh, and then we already talked about, there's a very high level Oregon bicycle ped plan that will be providing some guidelines for us. They have a bunch of goals that we will be considering. And then there's the transportation options plan with the focus on making sure that there are expanded transportation choices for people. And there are some guidelines and some policies and strategies in here that we also would be considering as part of the TSP update. Again, similarly, there's the safety action plan. It has a lot of policy and framework that we would be considering as we're going through safety solutions. There is the current statewide transportation improvement program that we call the STIP. and it has several projects that are highlighted for Sandy, and I just grabbed those. 26 from Tenike Road to Wolf Drive Vista Loop. There's a sidewalk project out there. Let's see, there's 2 streetlight projects at DeBarco and 211. And then there's also some project for some funding for some curb ramps. It doesn't say where. Maybe just various curb ramps along 26. So these are your 3 funded STIP projects. Yeah,
I
Kelly?
was going to say, aren't 2 of these, Mike, underway currently, basically?
Yeah, I think that the ADA ramp one, even though it's not it's just the, the part of that settlement agreement with ODOT and the AOCIL. And then the Vista Loop Tenike PED project is scheduled to be let in October of this year. It's already gone through final design and it's just in the contracting pipeline. And then, now I forgot the other one you mentioned.
It says signal at DeBarco and 211.
Well, good. I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to clarify that. These are just street lights. It's not a traffic signal.
Oh, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, do they mean street light, or?
Yeah, they mean streetlights, not
okay.
what are commonly referred to as stoplights. But no, these are just the light on the pole that illuminates the
illumination. Okay.
Right, exactly. And it was kind of weird because they already transferred jurisdiction, and then we saw this project. It was in the final stages of the jurisdiction transfer. Somebody called us about this project. We said, "Do you know that this is no longer going to be a state highway?" And the consultant's response was, "Well, we don't care. Our job is to design this. So let's work that out with ODOT." So we're just saying, "Okay, well, we'll take 2 free."
Say, Mike, just be quiet.
Yeah. No, it's already done. So.
That's funny. Okay.
But anyway, I did want to clarify. This does not mean a traffic signal.
Okay. I didn't think so. Streetlights is kind of an old-timey way to say a traffic signal, but
yeah,
no one calls them streetlights like that either. So. Okay, thanks.
I saw that Don had his hand raised. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I can't see you. Oh, you're muted, Don.
You're on mute, Don.
Was he stuck?
There we go.
Yeah.
My hand was raised because I was going to ask a question about the streetlight on DeBarco.
Yeah.
Asked and answered.
Okay, good. I was reading it literally, so.
Yep, so was I.
All right. Let's see. So there are also transportation system plan guidelines that are pretty detailed on what needs to be included in the TSP. So we will be following those. There's also some statewide strategies. These are pretty high level, as you can see, but all things that we will be considering as we go through. And these are really aimed at the greenhouse gas reduction goal that the state has set. It's a 75% reduction in GHG emissions by 2050. So a pretty ambitious goal. And greenhouse gas toolkit. Oh, shoot, right. That was everything for the state. So now we can get into stuff that's the local planning documents. So we did review Clackamas County's transportation system plan since they are the county that you are within. And the big connection here is they have a couple projects that we need to consider and tie into Sandy. A trail project. Actually, they're both trail projects. The Tickle Creek Trail. Wow, it's hard to say. And then also the much longer Sandy to Mount Hood Trail that would be going through Sandy. I don't know. Does city staff, do you guys know? These must be included in the Parks and Trail Master Plan update that they're working on right now.
I saw when we were talking last week with Tracy Johnson from ESA, I definitely saw that the Tickle Creek, there was like a notation on there about extending that trail northwest to the Cazadero Trail. I don't recall on that trail map that she presented seeing anything for the going east, but maybe yeah.
Okay. Well, that's something that we could look at.
Dawn can probably speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, I don't recall anything on the Sandy to Mount Hood Trail system at all within there. In fact, this is the first time I've heard about the Sandy to Mount Hood Trail. So I apologize for being in the dark about that one. And there were some questions about the extension of the Tickle Creek Trail. Although I don't believe it was quite as specific as far as matching up with the Cazadero Trail or the Springwater Trail. But that may have changed in the latest draft. I'm not quite sure. I haven't reviewed that yet. So anyway, that's what I know.
Okay. Well, and I will say, I mean, just from the TSP's perspective, because your parks and trail work is so current, we will mostly be incorporating it and just making sure that it fits with any other decisions or projects that we would be coming up with for the other modes, you know, like making sure sidewalk connectivity or bike connectivity is just coordinated with that trail system. Or if there's any sections of the trails that go on the street from that plan, we'll want to make sure that it makes sense for the rest of the transportation too. But we won't be doing any new, I don't think, trail planning just because you guys have already done all of this work.
Well, it sounds like my work is done then. I you know.
Well, it's not easy. There'll be a lot of coordination. So, I mean, I'm appreciative, Don, that you're going to be looking at this because I do want to make sure, you know, all the context and background that comes with the trail plan makes sense when we start working on the street system plan too. Sure. That they're, you know, that they complement each other. That's what I'm trying to think.
Great.
Yeah. So thanks. All right. Let's see. So we did go back to the city's comprehensive plan. Wow, 1997, guys. That's getting up there. I know you do have plans to update that fairly recently, don't you? Like within the next year or two?
We're working on it.
Working on it. Okay, good. 97. Wow, that's a while ago. So, anyways, we did go through here and look at the goals and policies that are in the comp plan.
Yeah, the city council has put aside funding that we'll be passing with our new budget, and then we'll also be seeking grants. So it's currently underway, and we'll be sending out like a RFQ this summer to hire a consultant. So it is underway.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have good transportation goals and policies from the TSP that can just get folded back and make that part of the comp plan easier. Of course, we reviewed the current 2011 Sandy Transportation System Plan. We will be starting with those goals and refreshing them as needed based on input that we get from the city, and then also any newer transportation goals and policies that make sense. Because again, a lot's happened in transportation since 2011. Oops. So there are some new goals that we will be adding to, and that'll be in the next meeting that you guys will get to see and review. And then Darcy, or APG, I guess Emma probably reviewed the city code. I don't know, Darcy, if you have anything to say about code.
Right. So we look at zoning ordinances, development ordinances to, in this case, Sandy's development code to, to see where, again, you're requiring parking, access management, street cross sections, anything that has to do with the really kind of the land use side of transportation system planning. We're not getting into so much detail as your engineering standards, but specific standards such as street cross sections, they need to be factored in very early on in the development process because you need to know how much land you're dealing with and what goes where. So we look for those elements in a code, and we just kind of we bookmark where those are and what they say. And towards the end of your update process, when you are looking at system improvements and coming forward with specific recommendations, then we go back and say, okay, so is there anything that needs to be updated? Is the TSP now requiring wider sidewalks, or are bike lanes now specified for these arterials? And then we just make sure that the standards and the development code are consistent. So that's pretty much the exercise. I don't know that I am familiar enough to remember if there was any flags. But thinking about, say, the transit plan, making sure that there are appropriate requirements for incorporating or planning for transit-related improvements in a site development or a site design. That would be something we would be looking for. Bicycle parking requirements, that's something that we review and kind of look at state of the art and what other jurisdictions are doing. Again, depending on how strong the community's interest is in, that mode, or in, really making a friendly environment for active modes, we can look at beefing up standards and requirements around bicycle parking and amenities. So things like that.
Yeah, I'm curious if anything's coming out of the Parks and Trail Master Plan. I don't know if they're making any changes maybe to trails and trail types and how that relates to development. If you develop land and the trail goes through, this is something else we could look at.
One thing I will say is that we need to look at the entirety of the code sections that are relevant to if they're going to be clear and objective, because we're getting challenged on that a lot by attorneys out of Portland now. And so one of the things with that is looking at the park section, which is not written in a clear and objective manner. We've already started kind of looking at that and working with ESA on that. And then the other is going to be making sure all of the changes in the TSP are expressly incorporated into the development code, because they weren't previously in 2011. So we've run into some limited land use decision issues. So we'll be having our attorneys take a look at that as well, concurrently with adoption of the TSP. So that basically an attorney can't get us on like a gotcha thing that our code hasn't expressly incorporated a part of the TSP. And then I do see that Andy has her hand raised.
You moved, Andy.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I just want to throw in, I realize you guys are talking about requirements, but I also am part of a Vision Around the Mountain plan, which is essentially improvements to transportation, and it's currently pretty heavy transit related, but from Portland Metro to the mountain on both sides, so meaning Highway 26 and then also through the gorge. And one of the things we're currently looking at is park and ride. And I know that Sandy is identified as a possible park and ride place. So I just want to throw into here, it's not necessarily in the transit master plan, but there are improvements around crosswalks around the transit center at City Hall. So if we could just make a little scribble to also just possibly identify what some jurisdictions are doing for park and ride, either down at the operations center, but preferably at the transit.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting. A park and ride would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Let's see if I can keep moving. So it's just the circulation plan for Boards Head Village. And again, we've talked about the transit master plan. So we will be looking at those goals and policies and pulling those in as needed to the TSP. So they're consistent, and any of the projects and programs from that get pulled in. We also reviewed the Oregon Trail School had a Safe Routes to School plan, which had quite a few projects highlighted in them. So we will be looking at those to see if they should be pulled forward as projects that would be in the TSP.
And can I just say one thing about that? It was mainly myself and a few other staff members, and then Julia Monteith and Jim over at OTSC that worked on this project. But we applied for a grant, and there was 90 something applicants. They gave grants to 41 communities, and they said we ranked like 43rd. So we missed the grant, $600,000 or $700,000 in grant money by just a couple of places. And they said it's a 2-year grant cycle, and they said to apply again because they are like 95% confident we'll be awarded the grant next time. So I'll be working with OTSD to try to get that grant for about $600,000 to $700,000 in about a year and a half from now again.
Okay, great. So we can put all these projects in the TSP and then funding source. We'll just say
Exactly.
ODOT grant.
And then
That's what I
OTSD will
heard.
be, yep. And then OTSD will be contributing money as well as part of the local match. So
Okay, great. Well, maybe you'll get bonus points for having them in an adopted plan. And that could help win the money.
yeah, one of the spots that we lost points on was that we didn't. I mean, it's a good thing, but there wasn't a lot of incidents between school-age children and vehicles during the hours of school. So there has been incidents with people being hit at some of those areas, but they weren't school children, thankfully. But then you lose points on that in the grant project. So.
Yeah. Let's see. And then the Parks and Trail Master Plan, which is in progress. And we even had a coordination meeting a couple of weeks ago. Kelly put it together with our group, the TSP group, and the Parks and Trail Master Plan group, so we could coordinate. So we'll be sharing data and graphical files just to make sure we're coordinated well. Oh, there's just the IGA. That's for the STA. It's a bit of a acronyms. So just a lot of detail on what happens within the STA downtown, which Darcy had talked about before. There's also a downtown parking management plan or study that talks about a lot of issues with parking downtown. I don't know, we will be looking at parking a little bit downtown, but I guess, Kelly, I don't know how much, I'm curious what your perspective is. How much into parking do you think the TSP needs to get?
I think it needs to get to the level that I noticed on one of your previous slides, we referenced that the city removed the standard that businesses within the C1 district, which is our downtown district, don't have to provide off-street parking any longer. And the main reason we did that is to try to, what we are running into is a lot of our properties are very small in the downtown, and they don't have enough room to accommodate both a new building and parking lots. So we weren't seeing any new development in the downtown the last like 10, 15 years. And now we already have 3 or 4 that are moving forward in this next year without parking associated. So it's working. But I think one thing we will want to look at is over time, what that is going to require is more parking lots in the downtown, probably city-owned parking lots. So kind of identifying where those should go maybe at a very high level. Might be something worth diving into just a little bit. And then I see Carl has his hand up too.
Thanks for helping moderate, Carl.
Yeah, I wouldn't have brought it up at this point, but it looks like this level of detail is there, so I'll bring it up now. We're talking about sidewalks and lanes and those sorts of things. And I know that one of the things that's on my mind is pedestrian crossing with those yellow indicator lights that slow traffic down. This is the kind of place that would be described in, and we would be looking at those kinds of possibilities, or is there another?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we wouldn't be doing, a detailed like crossing evaluation in the entire city, but if a mid-block crossing comes up where we know there's enough, pedestrian demand, we would be looking to see if those rectangular rapid flashing beacons would be appropriate, and if that's a project, that needs to be added to the TSP for sure. Okay,
and then contrary to, I almost hate to bring it up, but the location of Shelley and Alt, I'm sure we're going to evaluate that particular intersection in this process too.
Oh, I don't have the list of intersections in front of me. I don't know if Kelly or...
It's just a difficulty. We fooled with it in the past and it didn't work very well. And now it looks like there's an opportunity to reevaluate it. So that's all I'm asking.
I think 2 of the plans that Rhea is going to reference here in a few minutes are the Pleasant Street Master Plan and the Downtown Walkability Assessment. We have almost completed the Downtown Walkability Assessment. It's like in its final draft. And then, so both of those documents, and with the help of ACOM, an engineering firm, we have reviewed potential modifications to that intersection. The first one, as you'll remember, Carl, was the realignment of the intersection. That's probably not something that's going to happen in the near future. Right. So in the near future, there's modifications to the signals and the placement of the crosswalks that would need to be made.
Right. Okay. I know we're at big picture
Sure. No,
this time, so I just want to make sure we didn't miss out on some opportunities like that. Okay.
sure.
I mean,
And-
if I can just mention one more, I think the other one that we need to look at closer that's also identified in the downtown walkability assessment is the crossing by the action center and making that a more visible crossing somehow, because there's a lot of people that cross there, and there's also a bus stop there, and it's right by the library. And I could see an incident occurring there at some point if we don't do something to be preventative.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. And yeah, we would be leaning on the city a lot for all that type of background. So as we're going through, if Mike, and Kelly bring up issues like that, we definitely will be looking at them and then see if there's any opportunities to add things into the TSP or if we need to evaluate anything. The next thing we reviewed was the urban growth expansion analysis. That's not too old, but yeah, the city had a UGB expansion back in 2017, and there was some new land use zoning that was applied as part of that. Here's the map. Shows the area. There's also the US 26 Sandy Gateway Plan. It's a little bit old, 2008, but we did take a look at that to see if there are any improvements that came out of that, and we showed the map from that. Let's see. Oh, here. And then the downtown walkability assessment, which Kelly said is almost done. It has a lot of goals and some recommendations that are in it.
So
again,
Kelly, I just wanted to ask a quick question about the gateway plan. Emma mentioned this to me, that you had some kind of direction about that plan, it being fairly old, maybe some of the things already being implemented, but others possibly need to be carried forward. So I just wanted to know if you had any, I guess, direction related to how the TSP might forward some things that you don't want to leave behind.
I mean, I think Mike has a lot more details on that plan than I do. I started working here in 2011, and Mike has been here for 30-something years. But what I know about that is it was never adopted by the city, but
Right.
Mike can probably expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, among the recommendations were center medians on 26, and would converted some of the full accesses on 26 west of between Bluff and 362nd to right in, right out only. And there was a lot of pushback from the property owners and members of the business community. So the thing just kind of like stopped right there when that happened. So that's why it was never adopted.
Mike, has the raised median's been brought up again, either for or against, or
by members of the city council, but and the council's changed since then. So I don't know if the council who was there when the idea was first broached and kind of responded to the pushback felt this feels differently than the current council on this, But I think it would be an issue that would show up again were there a proposal for center medians in that continuous center turn lane.
Yeah.
I think you'd get the same business owners probably objecting as we did then.
Okay.
Yeah,
Carl has his hand raised. Oh, sorry.
Real quick, I really agree with what Mike just said. It's changed a lot with the city council since the first of the year. It'd be tough to say what the philosophy would be of the votes, but the business people are still the same, pretty much, since we've talked about that in the past. So it'll be something we'll have to bring up to the council.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I mean, things have changed. Safety and mobility are looked at a little bit differently than they probably were 10+ years ago.
Some of the objections weren't necessarily related to access. Some of the objections were based on the property owners recalling that they actually paid for, for those access rights, and a lot of money, and on the controlled access section of the highway. And so they said, well, I paid for this. Now you're taking it away. And so I do believe at the time ODOT says they do have a source of funding or a policy to compensate permittees when the access is modified or removed, but that didn't seem to mollify a lot of the business owners.
Okay. Well, I will say, I mean, for the TSP, it is something that we'll probably talk about at a high level, but we won't be going like driveway to driveway and making any decisions on that. I would say if it was something that people were in favor of, it would probably be captured in the TSP as just that. There's interest in looking at maybe raised medians and more access management strategies for 26. And it's something that would have to be looked at further, but we wouldn't be making any like detailed access decisions as part of the TSP.
But there could be, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it could be, if you could demonstrate that it would be, improvement on the highway, that performance would improve, then I think that would be something that would outweigh some of those objections. Compensation might. And, in 13, 14 years since that plan was done, a lot of those full accesses are really useless because nobody uses them because it's impossible. Mm-hmm. There's such a long delay trying to make a left turn out of those things that there's no need for a full access there anymore because people just go to the signalized intersection. That was the other thing in that plan was there was a encouragement of like, crossover easements, and some of those crossover easements have been implemented. So it's a lot easier for people to get to a signalized intersection than to wait for 10 minutes, find a gap in the traffic to leave from those full access approaches.
Okay, yeah, that's good. But yeah, we would be looking at traffic volumes, mobility, and looking at all the safety data to see if there's anything that's supporting some access management.
Right. And I think staff comments indicated to us that maybe an outcome of the TSP would be to document, the need for additional access management study or the need to revisit the plan and update it. So yeah, to Ria's point, there'll be a lot of the technical analysis that would support a particular action or a series of opportunities. But the TSP would then memorialize possibly a next step on that. So I didn't want to lose that point though, because it does seem like a very old plan, and the idea of like, well, what do we do with that? I think it's good to have a little bit of clarity on that. So I do
think there might be an opportunity to look at east of downtown more because it wouldn't impact that many businesses and there's just not even that many direct driveways. So I think the area east of the couplet going out to like Johnson RV has much more potential for raised medians and for something to occur out there than west of downtown where we have all the business access. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and you could get it in there before development occurs. Can be helpful. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Good discussion. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I went back. We did the... So that's it for all of the documents that reviewed. And then at the end, we had just put a summary together of the management and monitoring standards that we would be applying, just pulling those forward. So there's one place to go find them all together. So you don't have to go hunt through all of those documents to find them. So these are the mobility standards or the congestion standards that we apply in the city. I think so here's all the city intersections that we're going to be looking at. So they're either ODOT or city of standard jurisdictions. You can see these. And then from the Oregon Highway Plan, that also emphasizes a volume to capacity ratio that we apply. And then you can see from the city of Sandy, you have a level of service D, which you apply for signalized and unsignalized intersections. Let's see, multimodal performance measures. Yeah, that's pretty light. I mean, no one has specific ones. The travel option plan and some of the safety plan and the ped bike plan have just some overall measures for pedestrian, bicycle, and transit use. Then we'd also be looking at spacing standards. I mean, the city has their standards that they apply based on the functional classifications of the roadway. And then similarly, the Oregon Highway Plan has standards that they apply to US 26. And it's variable. It's based on the speed and the classification of the road. So you can see there's all sorts of different spacing standards depending on where you're at in the context on the highway. And then there's some other standards here at the end as far as facility design for pedestrian and bicycle, some things that we would consider for the different type of design uses that we could use, how we apply for bikeways on different types of routes, and also some guidance on walkways. So we'd be looking at these, and that's the last page. So maybe I will, hold on. Stop sharing. Oh, look at that big button. Ah, we made it. So as far as just wrapping up the technical memo, do you guys have any other just big picture questions or the whole process or what we'll be doing with this information as we move forward? Everybody got their questions out?
Maria, did
Okay.
you want to just touch on the attachment with the project?
Oh, do you? I don't have it open actually. Hold on. Hold on.
Well, and the point of that is to
Please do.
see what's on the books today and what needs to be carried forward, right?
Yes. Yep. Sorry, I just forgot to open it. I looked at it this morning. Yeah, so hold on, let me go back. Okay, I'm a pro at this now. Yes, share. This, Darcy, since you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So we did go through and we made a big spreadsheet of all of the projects that come from all of these adopted plans, and it shows the source. And we will be starting with these as we work through the TSP update. Of course, cleaning out everything that's already been built. Those aren't, viable anymore. Or if there's any new projects that have been added, including those as well. And then all of the projects that carry over from the 2011 TSP, if they haven't been built, we'll either be confirming that they're still needed, or we will be noted that they're not needed anymore and that they're being dropped from the TSP and they wouldn't carry forward. But you can see there's quite a few transit master plan projects here, a bunch from the TSP. Let's see, some trails, some striping projects, some sidewalk infill projects, quite a few intersection projects, and then quite a few projects from the Clackamas County TSP as well. Let's see, most of them seem to be like little roadway segment projects, like some paved shoulders. So yeah, this is where we'd be starting from all of the other projects.
Should we update the $544 million cost for the bypass, or should we just try a wild guess?
Oh, I think you're going to wish it was that cheap when we're done, Mike, actually. But
yeah,
yes, as part of the
kidding.
TSP, as part of the bypass project is we do have a civil roadway designer on our team, and they're working on conceptual alignments right now. And we're trying to make some decisions on how much access could be allowed or not. What's an appropriate speed for this facility? Of course, the faster it is, the more expensive it is to build and to get through all the topography and the creek. So it's kind of a trade-off. Can we get it skinnier and less expensive, but then it's slower? So the travel time, right, is maybe not as big as a benefit. So we're working through all of that right now. But once we get through that, yeah, they will be providing a cost estimate that we can then put in our benefit cost analysis. And if it survives that whole process and goes in the TSP, yeah, we might add a zero, Mike. I'm joking, but to that cost estimate. So any questions with that?
I was just going to make a comment that some of those projects are still projects that need to be completed, but part of the project might have been completed since 2011.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
Might,
So some of them
might see
might
the
be
same
partial.
project name, but it will be, maybe the amount won't go up that much because part of the project will have already been completed. I saw a couple. I saw a couple sidewalk infill ones on there that I think the infill has been partially done because of a subdivision, but there's still some part of the project that's needed, for example.
Okay, yeah, we would be checking all the limits and we'll redo all the cost estimates. And those are 2011. I mean, honestly, things have gone up so much. We'll be using all current unit costs as well. I'm sure Mike could tell you how much things have gone up the last 10 years, but it's surprising.
Well, that's why there's a long list of projects from the 2011 TSP that still have not been completed because, funding is always the story.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to add in terms of the funding discussion, we will project how much we think the city will have available in the 20-year planning horizon and base the project selection partially on what fits within that amount.
Yeah, no, you're right, Seth. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we can come up with, and engineers are great at this and planners, we can come up with $100 million of projects, but if you can't afford them, then, right, it's just kind of an exercise of engineering and planning that we like to do. So yes, we will be coming up with a 20-year feasible transportation funding number. And then we will have to be deciding which ones are a priority that get covered with that money. And then which of the rest just become aspirational projects that would either happen through fronting development or grant, opportunities as they come. But they likely wouldn't, be realized and constructed in the next 20 years.
I got a question for you in this respect.
Sure.
I'm thinking in all of the futuring that the council has done over the years, it seems like it's crosswise between what we think is a priority and what ODOT and the state of Oregon figures that they are priority, and that many times they don't come together. Is there a component of this plan that will describe what the ODOT feels are the high priority projects the next 20 years or 10 years or 5 years? Because sometimes it's pretty frustrating to sit there in our council meetings and find out that ODOT or the state doesn't have any desire to go after those projects because they don't fit with the current priorities. Is there a way we're going to be able to understand some of those in this process or not?
Seth, do you want to answer or do you want? Well, I have an answer, but I don't want to give the wrong one.
Well, I'll take a stab at it, and you can.
We are recording it, so
that's true. Well, usually, with the TSPs, we look at the amount of discretionary funding that has historically been available to the jurisdiction, and kind of project that out into the future. So we factor that into the available funding for the TSP purposes. Another way to look at it, I guess, would be ODOT's STIP identifies what the state's priorities are for funding within, 3-year increments. And right now, those are largely focused on maintenance and safety and a little more active transportation than in the past. So I don't think I'm directly answering the question the way you're looking for. We'll know an amount of money that may be available. We know what some of ODOT's priorities are, but we won't necessarily resolve what the city's priorities are versus ODOT's priorities. Hopefully we're on the same page as much as possible, but within the funding available to both of us.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add on other small town TSPs that I've done in Oregon, whether it's Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, ODOT has given us an estimate of what they think, a reasonable 20-year investment contribution to the city could be. And it was, I'll just give an example, $2 million. And then this is part of the city process. They decided, well, if ODOT gave us this much money, these would be our priorities on the highway with that money. And it was kind of a back and forth with ODOT and then the ODOT staff said, yeah, those seem, if you, and again, this is all caveat language, but if that ended up being the right number, you know, and if you wanted to do that, we would support these types of projects. But it really was about at that level. So at least they could show that there would be some improvements in that next 20 years that could happen with some ODOT funding on the highway. Because we know it won't be zero, but we know it won't be everything either. So I think we're just trying to make a reasonable estimate of what it could be. So I don't know if that's what you were thinking, something like that. So.
I would love to see a partnership here where the city and the ODOT district that we work within comes up with some common priorities that really make a difference. And so instead of putting a lot of our energies into stuff that we don't see ever coming back at us, maybe there's a way to push that. And I'm thinking about some of the, like the huge project we just talked about, the bypass. So 500 million is probably times 3 or 2 anyway. I'm sure it'll be $1 billion, if anything. So that's not even in the possibility of realm of anything. But on the other hand, if you never put it on the plan, you never get it. Kind of like fishing. You got to put the hook in the water some way. But I would love to be able to find a cooperative process there.
You know, one thing I think that's different, Carl, from the current TSP is at the time that was adopted, you know, there were a couple of license plate surveys, I think maybe just one, that kind of identified what the difference was between local and through traffic, or local and, you know, out of Sandy, UGB traffic. And it was it was like a 30-70 split. And council at the time said, we don't buy that at all. That's not a realistic number. So there was a council policy decision when we did our transportation STC methodology update. We're not going to put any ODOT projects in the STC capital plan because we're not going to pay 70% for a project that's on Highway 26. So, but one good thing about this plan is we'll have a little more accurate data and a little more comprehensive data on what the split is between local and through traffic. You won't like the number. It's not much different than the one from 10 years ago, but it's much more supportable than I think it was in the past.
Yeah. It just seems that if we're not going to be getting it, there's no chance on this green earth that we're going to get that. Why should we put our energies in trying to partner up, put projects in that won't be possible? But if they're possible, I'm kind of frustrated at times getting involved in some of the TSP things with the county, finding that we really get bypassed over because we're not in metro. Some other things come up that keep us from being able to even apply for some of these projects. So just want to be able to kind of put that in there. So
yeah, what I do agree with Carl. It was very frustrating the last time we went to the county about potential road projects. They didn't even acknowledge us really. So when I saw it come up again this year, I didn't even waste my time with it, because the last time we actually brought it to council, got their input, made some priorities, brought it to the county commissioners, and they didn't even look at our projects at all out here.
It's pretty frustrating, but again, we need to be smart and wise about this. Otherwise, we'll never get anything. And I think even if they're small projects, we should be looking at ways to coordinate that way, as long as they're important to us. So, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to what our next steps are? Let you guys go enjoy the sunshine. So I just wanted you guys to know for this group what would be coming up. So I believe we have 3 community advisory committee meetings throughout the process, and this is just the first one. So the second one we'd be planning on having probably pretty quickly. I think we'd have it early summer. We will be looking at the project goals, the objectives, and the evaluation criteria that we'll be using on the projects. We'll have a summary of that TSP financial forecast that we talked about. As soon as Mike gets me the historic transportation funding data, so I had to make a dig, Mike, from the city, we will be putting together that 20-year forecast of how much money we think would be reasonably available for projects. And then we will also have the transportation system existing conditions inventory. So that'll be looking at all of the pedestrian, bicycle, transit, and motor vehicle operations as they are today, and what type of deficiencies we find. And then also there'll be the future needs analysis too. So it'll include our look at the year 2040, and if there's any new system deficiencies that pop up, then really all the problems and issues that we'll have through 2040 and what we need to address. So your next packet's going to be a little bit thicker than this one. So with that, any other questions for us today? Can finish a little bit early. No, everyone looks glazed eyes.
Well,
All right, well,
Carl's 2 donuts in, I think. So
is he sugar coma? Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone, like I said, spending an hour and a half of this sunny Friday talking about transportation and policies. Okay. So yeah, keep a lookout. Like I said, I think we're going to be ready early summer to have the next meeting, and the packet will be coming your way.
yeah, what I was thinking on the next one, we would send out a doodle poll for availability so that we can potentially get more attendance.
Okay.
This one that we held today, we didn't do that because we are kind of getting a little behind. And we were trying to make sure that we don't lose any funding. So we kind of picked a date internally and just went for it. I didn't get anybody that said they couldn't make today, but again, we didn't get a lot of the CAC members either. So I'll try to work with you, Rhea, to be a little bit more coordinated on the next one.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds good.
I can send out like a doodle poll with some different dates, and we can do it that way.
It was just unfortunate that it was a sunny Friday, right? Who could have predicted that? Nobody.
I know.
It's April. How can this be sunny?
Pouring.
Right.
I know. And a Friday. Fridays are tough, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Friday afternoon, yeah, probably not the best time.
It's almost happy hour.
Donut hour, anyway.
Donut hour.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, thank you, everyone. It was nice to meet you that I haven't met before, and we'll be in touch. Thanks for being on the committee. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, can you stay on for a second?
Sure.
All right, bye.
I'd like to figure out how to download this recording too.
Yeah, I was just looking that up. So when you end the meeting, I think it's going to start saving to your Google Drive folder.
Okay.
I think there should be a new folder that gets created called Meets Recordings or something like that. So let me know if it doesn't work. But I think you have to end the meeting first.
Okay. How do I end the meeting? I usually just click on it. Okay, stop recording, it says. Are you available if I need to call you real fast here?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to figure it out together. I don't have experience.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.